Okay, there are a number of things I want to talk about. Actually, three things. First, I want to talk about the dealings with academia. Second thing is I want to give an update on some information I've been looking for online from the radio show This American Life with Ira Glass. And the third thing I want to talk about is give a technical update of what's going on. So this is just an update. Now, I'm not confident we're going to get anywhere with academia for a number of reasons, a number of possible reasons. Not for a number of reasons, a number of possible reasons. First of all, it might be just the fact that my request is coming from Gmail account and it's not coming from another academic peer, and they just don't have the time to deal with me, either through their own arrogance or just their busy schedule. They've decided to just ignore me. That's one possibility. A second possibility is something that I believe George Bernard Shaw once said, and I love these little brainy quotes from famous people. George Bernard Shaw once said that the problem with the world today is there's too many confident people that are stupid and don't know what they're talking about, while the smart people are cautious. So it might be because they're intelligent people who are just cautious. Uh, and that cautiousness might fuel some fear that they'll look stupid, or I might know something more about this than they do, which is to me is silly, but it might be legitimate fear. And so they don't want to risk anything by talking to me. Um, the third possibility might be that they don't know. They genuinely don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about. My wife, when she compiled this list of 9 people, she made note of their uh, origins, their where they came from, what university they came from. A lot of times, their field of study and their degree doesn't align with that department. It doesn't seem to be on the same kind of footing. They don't seem qualified for their job. And so this third possibility might be that, academia is a scam. These universities, they're in it for the money and the prestige, and they're just professional bullshitter. If you have a classroom of people that don't know anything, you don't you don't necessarily have to teach them anything, because they whatever you tell them, they'll just assume is valid and truthful. So there's no motivation to be honest. There's no motivation to actually be educated and informed on what you're talking about. There's a stronger desire just to be a good performer and convince them people, and they'll never know any better. After the semester's over, they'll move on. They'll never revisit or study you under a microscope. So the third possibility is maybe they don't know any better. You know, um, there's something to be said about the idea that those who know do and those who don't know teach. That's an old expression that's floating around. I don't know who first said this, but when I was in college, my college peers used to say, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit." That was another common expression that people would have, and I think that was applied to grad students and professors and undergrads, um, and how to effectively present a case in a lecture or something, even if you had to stand up and give an oral exam. Anyway, so those who know do, those who don't know teach. And there's a few other little expressions that are um, less appreciative, honorable. um, that I could say. Anyway, that's one thing that there might be a chance that we'll never get anywhere with these guys. And I wonder, looking back, when my in my flat Earth case that I mentioned, maybe the head of that department, he couldn't program anymore. He couldn't do math anymore. You know, once you leave a subject for a few years, even if you're teaching it, your edge kind of dulls a little bit. And I think a lot of these professors. Oh, there's something else. There was a professor at University of Tennessee who was really good. His name was Dr. David Straight, and I learned, um, I you know, there's no growth. And when you just do the same lecture, when you teach the same course year after year after year, and you're just doing the same lecture, not day by day, but you do the same lecture you gave the year before. There's no growth there. And so someone coming in out of the rain who has a current who has questions on the current state of things, they might not be able to answer my questions. Or they might not be able to provide any useful insight. That's something else to consider. Um, Here's something else. I might know this stuff better than they do because I've lived it. I don't think I ever told you this, but I was an intelligence specialist in the Navy. So, in absence of having any kind of official stamp from academia in my initiative, I could provide my history and my insight of being forged by fire by being part of an expeditionary force. I was part of the peacekeeping effort in Beirut, Lebanon, as an intelligence specialist. So I could use that if we're going to go with argument from authority is a logical fallacy, but argument from experience isn't. All right. So that's one thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is this um, thing from Ira Glass. Let's see here. So I'm running a script, by the way, on my other computer. That's why I'm doing this on my laptop. These recordings here. Oh, give me a second. All right. Um, so I've there's I used AI to ask what program from This American Life with National Public Radio, hosted by Ira Glass, uh, what episode would there be where they discuss the psychology of people who are terrorists, who are radical Islamists, terrorists? And one AI said, "Oh, I couldn't find anything." The one that Copilot that Bing has, it said, "I couldn't find anything." The Chat GPT found two episodes, and they're an hour long, and they're broken up into different. So the hour-long episode is a theme, and the episode has several different stories, like three different stories sometimes. So this one called "Know Your Enemy," which was episode 285, it had three different stories, maybe four. And I got something that I didn't expect out of a couple of them. So I have to go back because I didn't have time to listen to the last one. I have to go back and listen to the other one, which I think is even better. The other suggestion is a much earlier episode and talks about someone who was like the Al Qaeda expert in London. I need to listen to that. So I need to study that and to break that down and present that. So that's an update of what's going on with that. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the tech, the very cool tech. So I got my hands on a data dump of all the IP address ranges, and there's over 600,000 of them. So what I mean by range is that if an IP address is kind of like a number, a sequence of numbers, okay? And there's two different. There's version 4 that's being used in version 6. Um, I don't want to get too technical, but I could. I could explain it so that you'd understand on a deeper level. But So basically, each row in this data dump, each row shows a to, a, a from, and to. If a range, so if you have an IP address that's between these ranges of numbers, then your IP address is located in this country. So basically, every device has an IP address. Every computer does. So when you go on the internet, you give the website your IP address, and from that they can figure out your country, and then from that they can figure out the list of languages that your country uses. Reasonably, there's some indigenous languages that they don't bother with too much. That's one thing. Here's something else. Whenever you go to a website, your web browser, whether it's Chrome or Edge or Opera or Netscape, usually it's Chrome. So your your internet hands off um, your language preferences for that browser. Your language settings for that browser is handed off to the website. So I can take that and initially present my website in that language. I know how to do that. So the website comes up in that person's language preference according to their web browser settings. But I can also have a little menu based on the IP address that I get from them of what language preferences they can change it to. Pretty cool, huh? So I know how to do that, and I'm setting that up now. Now there's four um, platforms I'm investigating. There's Node BS, there's MyBB, there's Node BB, there's MyBB, there's Flarium, and there's PHP BB. So the one that looks the most the one that looks most promising to tie into with um, Patreon is one called Flarium, and I'm starting to investigate how to do that. So that's the technical aspect. And I talked about This American Life, and I talked about academia. So that's where we're at now.